A millionaire marries a rebellious girl on a bet, but what happened on their wedding night shocked everyone. In the glittering world of high society, where opulence masked hidden intentions, Aidan Blackwood was a name synonymous with wealth, charm, and power. Known as the shrewd and dashing billionaire, Aidan moved through life with effortless confidence. His name opened doors, his smile disarmed rivals, and his fortune turned the impossible into mere child's play. But what truly set tongues wagging was the unexpected whirlwind that landed him in the most scandalous situation of his life. It all began at an extravagant charity gala. The event teemed with socialites, aspiring models, and eager business magnates jostling for Aidan's attention. Yet, amidst the sea of poised and predictable, one fiery presence stood out. Alina Hart, a striking young woman with tousled auburn hair and defiant green eyes, had no interest in the event's pretensions. Wearing a vintage leather jacket over a cocktail dress, she leaned against the bar, sipping her drink as though daring the world to cross her. She wasn't like the other women vying for attention. Alina radiated raw energy and an air of rebellion. She was the daughter of a disgraced businessman, a young woman who'd refused to let her father's failure define her. She worked odd jobs, spoke her mind, and wore her independence like armor. It was her laugh, a mix of challenge and amusement, that caught Aidan's attention. To his surprise, she wasn't impressed by his wealth or the polished charm he usually relied on. Instead, she met his smooth talk with sharp wit, sparking an electric clash of personalities. Their banter quickly became the center of attention, much to Alina's irritation. As the evening wore on, Aidan found himself drawn to her unapologetic authenticity. But when he suggested they get to know each other better, Alina responded with a laugh. "You think I'm one of those women who'll fall at your feet just because you're rich? Dream on, Mr. Blackwood." The crowd buzzed with surprise. No one spoke to Aidan Blackwood like that. It was a small remark from one of his associates, a playful tease that lit the match. "Bet you couldn't handle a woman like her, Aidan." Before he knew it, the idea took hold. Fueled by pride, curiosity, and a touch of recklessness, Aidan declared, "I'll marry her." The room erupted with laughter, but Aidan wasn't joking. It was meant to be a game, a challenge to win over the woman who seemed impervious to his charm. Alina, overhearing the ridiculous proposal, responded with a scoff. "You marry me? Over my dead body." But fate had other plans. Through a series of bizarre twists, public pressure, and Alina's eventual realization that she could use this farce to repay her father's debts, she reluctantly agreed. The arrangement was clear. They'd marry for a year. Aidan would settle her father's debts, and she'd accompany him to public events, playing the part of a dutiful wife. From the outside, their marriage was a fairy tale, a rebellious girl plucked from obscurity and swept into a world of luxury. But behind closed doors, the clash of their personalities was relentless. Alina refused to be a trophy wife, and Aidan found himself both frustrated and fascinated by her fiery independence. The wedding day was a spectacle, with tabloids buzzing about the unlikely couple. Yet, the real shock came that night. The sprawling honeymoon suite of the Blackwood estate was adorned with rose petals and candlelight. Yet, the atmosphere between the newlyweds was anything but romantic. Alina perched on the edge of the bed, her arms crossed and her expression unreadable. Aidan, seated across the room, loosened his tie, trying to break the silence. "Why are you so tense?" he asked, his tone laced with curiosity. Alina shot him a glare. "I'm not exactly thrilled about being someone's trophy wife." "You agreed to this," Aidan reminded her, though there was no malice in his voice. "No one forced you." "That doesn't mean I have to like it," she snapped, her voice sharp. "This whole thing is a charade." Aidan tilted his head, studying her. Despite her bravado, there was a vulnerability in her eyes. He didn't know what he'd expected from this arrangement, but it wasn't this raw, unfiltered honesty. For the first time, he realized how little he knew about her beyond her fiery exterior. "I'm curious about something," he said after a pause. "Why did you agree to marry me?" "Really?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. "I needed the money. And you needed someone who wouldn't fawn over you. Congratulations. We both got what we wanted." But there was something she wasn't saying. Aidan could sense it, though he chose not to press further. "Not tonight." As the hours wore on, They found themselves in an unexpected conversation. The walls of animosity began to crack as they shared fragments of their lives. Aiden spoke of his rise to wealth and the loneliness that often accompanied it, while Alina revealed her struggles growing up under the shadow of her father's failure. By the time the clock struck midnight, they were sitting side by side, their earlier hostility replaced with a tentative truce. It wasn't until the end of their wedding night that the real shock came. As Aiden prepared to leave the room, respecting Alina's clear boundaries, she hesitated. Her voice was soft, almost uncertain. "You should know something." He turned, his brow furrowed. "What is it?" She avoided his gaze, her cheeks tinged with color. I've never done this before. Any of it." For a moment, her words didn't register. Then, understanding dawned. Aiden's eyes widened, not with judgment but with genuine surprise. Yeah, she said quickly, cutting him off. "So, if you thought this was going to be some kind of consummation of the deal, think again." Her vulnerability was palpable, and it caught Aiden off guard. In that moment, he saw a side of her he hadn't expected, one that was tender and unguarded. "I'm not going to force anything," he said gently. "This is your choice, Alina." She looked up, her eyes meeting his. For the first time, there was no sarcasm or defiance, only a flicker of gratitude. And so, the first night of their marriage ended not with passion, but with an unexpected respect that neither of them had anticipated. The days following their unconventional wedding night were a whirlwind of public appearances, tabloid headlines, and awkward interactions. To the outside world, Aiden and Alina were the perfect example of a Cinderella story, the rebellious girl who had tamed the untouchable billionaire. But behind closed doors, their relationship was a complicated tangle of misunderstandings, unspoken truths, and a growing tension neither wanted to acknowledge. In the grand Blackwood estate, a sprawling mansion that felt more like a palace than a home, Alina struggled to find her place. The staff, though polite, were constantly watching her, as if expecting her to slip up. The lavish surroundings felt suffocating, and Aiden's endless work meetings and social obligations left her feeling like a bird trapped in a gilded cage. But Alina wasn't the type to wallow in silence. "If I'm going to live here," she announced one morning over breakfast, "I'm not just going to sit around and play the part of your doting wife." Aiden glanced up from his tablet, his eyebrow arching. "And what exactly do you plan to do?" "I don't know yet," she admitted, crossing her arms. "But I'm not going to spend my days shopping or hosting tea parties like some stepforward wife." Her defiance amused him. "You do realize you're in a position where you don't have to do anything, right?" "Maybe you're okay with that," she shot back, "but I'm not." Aiden leaned back in his chair, a hint of a smile tugging at his lips. "Fine. Do whatever you want, as long as it doesn't end up on the front page of a tabloid." Her eyes narrowed. "Don't tempt me." True to her word, Alina threw herself into finding purpose. She started volunteering at a local community center, helping underprivileged youth with art classes and workshops. The work was messy and chaotic, but it grounded her in a way she hadn't expected. For the first time in years, she felt like she was making a difference. Aiden, however, didn't approve. "You're wasting your time," he said one evening when she returned home, her hands stained with paint. "There are 100 more efficient ways to help people if that's what you want to do. I could fund the entire center and build 3 more like it." "That's not the point," she argued, setting down her bag. "Throwing money at a problem doesn't fix it. These kids need someone who actually cares, not just another rich guy writing a check." Her words stung more than he cared to admit. Aiden prided himself on his philanthropy, but Alina's raw, hands-on approach made him question the depth of his own contributions. For the first time in years, someone had challenged him to look beyond the surface, and it unsettled him. Unexpected connections. As weeks turned into months, the walls between them began to crack. Their verbal sparring became less combative and more like playful banter. Aiden found himself drawn to Alina's passion and determination, while she discovered a surprising depth to the man behind the billionaire facade. One night, after a particularly long charity gala, they found themselves alone in the mansion's massive library. Alina, still in her evening gown, kicked off her heels and sank into a plush armchair. Aiden poured 2 glasses of whiskey and joined her, loosening his tie. "Why do you do it?" she asked, swirling her glass. The galas, the fundraisers, the endless handshakes. It's part of the game, he admitted. People expect it. And it keeps the business world running smoothly. She studied him for a moment, her gaze piercing. But what do you want? If you could walk away from all of it, what would you do? The question caught him off guard. No one had ever asked him that before. For so long, his life had been defined by ambition and the relentless pursuit of success that he'd never stopped to consider what might lie beyond it. I don't know, he said honestly. Maybe I've been doing this so long, I've forgotten how to want anything else. Alina's expression softened. For the first time, she saw not the untouchable billionaire, but a man who carried the weight of his empire on his shoulders. You should figure it out, she said quietly. Before it's too late. The turning point. Their growing connection didn't go unnoticed. The staff, the media, and even their closest friends began to see the subtle changes in their dynamic. Aiden, once the picture of control, was more relaxed and approachable. Alina, though still headstrong, seemed less defensive, her sharp edges softening in his presence. But not everyone was happy about the shift. Victoria Langley, a former flame of Aiden's and a prominent socialite, made no secret of her disdain for Alina. At a high-profile gala, she cornered Alina by the bar, her voice dripping with condescension. You must be so proud of yourself, Victoria sneered. Landing Aiden Blackwood. Tell me, how does it feel to marry into a life you'll never truly belong to? Alina, unfazed, sipped her drink. I wouldn't know. But if you're so curious, maybe you should ask yourself why you didn't manage to land him. The jab hit its mark, and Victoria stalked off in a huff. Aiden, who had witnessed the exchange from across the room, couldn't help but smirk. Later that night, as they left the gala, he turned to Alina with a rare, genuine laugh. Remind me never to get on your bad side, he teased. Her lips twitched into a smile. Smart man. As their one-year agreement neared its halfway point, the lines between obligation and genuine affection began to blur. They started spending more time together outside of public appearances. Dinners on the terrace, late-night conversations in the library, even spontaneous weekend getaways. One evening, while watching the sunset from the estate's garden, Aiden made an unexpected confession. When we first got married, I thought I had you all figured out, he said, his voice low. But now, I don't think I've ever met anyone like you. Alina turned to him, her eyes searching his. And what exactly does that mean? It means, he said, taking her hand, that this started as a game. But somewhere along the way, it became real. At least for me. Her breath caught at his words, her heart pounding in her chest. She wanted to respond, to say something that matched the vulnerability in his voice, but fear held her back. Instead, she pulled her hand away, her walls going up once more. This was never supposed to be real, Aiden. He didn't push her. But the look in his eyes told her he wasn't giving up. Not yet. What neither of them realized was that the stakes of their relationship were about to be raised. Secrets from Alina's past, long buried, were beginning to resurface. And the carefully constructed world they had built was about to be tested in ways they couldn't imagine. The journey of their unconventional love was far from over, and its true depth was yet to be revealed. As the year drew to a close, Alina and Aiden stood at a crossroads. Their marriage, born out of a reckless bet, had transformed into something neither of them anticipated. Alina, once fiercely independent, had found a partner who saw her worth beyond her defiance. Aiden, who had lived behind the facade of wealth and power, discovered the joy of vulnerability and the strength in love. On the night of their contract's expiration, Aiden took her hand and spoke with quiet resolve. This started as a game, but loving you has been the most real thing I've ever done. I don't want it to end. Alina, her heart full of emotion, met his gaze with a trembling smile. Neither do I. Their marriage, no longer bound by a contract, became a choice, one they made together, for love, for partnership, and for a future they would build side by side.